Hello YouTube, my name is Koleye. I am a Polandball comic artist, cartoonist, and I've been making these comics for about 12 or 13 years at this point. I'm going to be, throughout this video, commenting and giving something of a tutorial on how I draw comics in Photoshop. I know a lot of people use Paint. It's a very simple program to use. I like Photoshop because it allows you to do a lot more complicated things and save a lot of time through the various advanced tools that it has that aren't present in Paint, such as layering. Although I've heard that Paint is now getting layering. I don't know if it has it yet, but it will at some point, if it doesn't already. And that's a huge time saver for me. So here I was just sort of showing people how to use the line tool. You could just press Shift and then click in an area to draw a line in Photoshop, and that's how I make the panel dividers. So I'm going to be drawing a very brief two-panel comic. It's a sort of a linguistic joke about the European Union, about Europe in general. So the first thing that I do after creating the actual panel is start drawing balls. And it's really hard to make your balls smooth. I'm something of a perfectionist when it comes to it, but for the purpose of this video and this comic, I was a little bit more rushed than I otherwise would be. So you can see here I've made two roughly equally sized balls. Sometimes one ball is bigger than the other. Sometimes you want your balls to be bigger or smaller depending on the importance of a character, whether you're showing that this character is more powerful or physically larger. You know, this country, like Russia, for example, being physically larger than a smaller country. So here I'm drawing a small blanket and putting the European Union inside of it. This is the third comic in a series that I've made about parenting that explores the relationship that France and Germany have with the European Union essentially as its parents. Obviously, historically, they've been two of the most important member states, going back to the EU's earliest origins in the 1950s. So I drew a small blanket here. You can see for the border, I did not use black. I used a darker shade of the actual color, so a slightly purplish blue. I think it makes it look more natural than just having every object that you have in a comic be bordered with black. I like making the eyes relatively early on when I'm drawing balls, just so I get a sense for where I'm going to end up putting the actual features of the flag, whether it's a tricolor or the stars on the European Union, for example. So you can see I'm tabbing back to an old comic that is still a work in progress that has the accurate colors for some of the characters that I'm using in this comic. So here I finished the eyes. I used a slightly smaller pencil point for this. I think I used 3-point pencil to make these. And because these are all different layers, it makes it a lot easier to move these things around. I don't have to go back and redraw things as frequently as I might in Paint, for example. So here I started drawing France. Again, I used the layering tool to essentially draw the lines behind the character, and then I can just go back and use the eraser tool to clean it up a little bit. Fill it in, and then start drawing the eyes. I really like drawing the eyes on balls. I think it's one of the most fun parts because that's when you really sort of get the sense that it's not just a ball, this is a character, right? There's very few ways to actually express emotion in a Polandball comic. It's basically all done with the eyes themselves. So there are ways you can get creative about it, but you know, the way that I'm drawing it here, I'm showing that France is happy, you know, new mother, new parent, proud of their tiny little baby. I drew a hair bow here to indicate that the character is female. It's the mother. You don't have to do that. It's something that has become a very common trope in Polandball as well. Although for many comics, it's irrelevant whether or not the country, the character has a gender. It's not important. But again, I felt it's important in this to sort of emphasize that they're parents. I'm drawing Germany here, same thing with the lines. I love drawing tricolors just because they're super easy. Clean up the excess that goes outside of the borders. Now for Germany, the top third of the German flag is black. You can see here what it actually looks like when I use black. It blends in with the border of the ball, which I don't like. So I use a slightly offset version of black. So it's a slightly lighter version, just so you get a sense that there is a border and the flag itself within that border. Shading is really easy in Photoshop. What I do is essentially make a new layer, and I use the color black and the pencil tool to essentially draw over every object that I want to shade, create a shadow for. And then I fill it in. I do it again for another object here, the blanket, and again the EU. And I just change the opacity in the right side of the program to anywhere between 10 and 30%, depending on how much of the shadow or how pronounced of a shadow you would like. So this panel is mostly done. I have the characters in the positions that I sort of want them in, and what I'm doing here is creating a second panel by essentially copying and pasting the previous panel's dimensions and dragging it down and making it pixel perfect, and then cropping it, because again, I know this is only going to be a 2-panel comic. It's a very quick and dirty comic. This next panel has a couple of more characters, so I'm just trying to bang out these balls really quickly. So you can see I'm going to have a couple more characters here: Canada, the United States, United Kingdom, as well as the EU, Germany, and France. So I'm drawing a lot of balls. Got to clean them up. Keep your balls clean. So here I can just go back and use the eyedropper tool on a previously drawn EU. Draw the stars. Now the EU flag has 12 stars. I tend to be a stickler for it, but I wasn't for this. Sometimes when you draw a very small ball, you can't really fit all the features in and of a flag, but the point is to get it across, right? Everyone knows what the European Union flag looks like, or rather the flag of Europe. I know that there are going to be people in the comments that are going to be pedantic and point out it's the flag of Europe. It's a flag that's used by the Council of Europe as well. It was first adopted by the Council of Europe, and then later adopted by the European Union. Again, here you can see I have another comic on one of the other tabs that I'm going to use as a reference for the right colors for the United States. What I'm doing here is drawing sunglasses for the European Union. I love drawing sunglasses. I think, they're the defining feature of the United States. The United States' character in Polandball, that is. They're almost always drawn with sunglasses. It's essentially just one of those things that's existed in Polandball canon, Polandball lore for forever. And it's used as a shorthand to denote that this character is supposed to be cool or anglicized in some manner. So that's what I'm doing with the European Union here. Now, if I remember correctly, I'm pausing here because I was looking for one of my older comics that has the colors for some of the other characters that I have here. And I was being indecisive as to whether or not I wanted to include other characters, including Canada and the UK. Eventually, I pulled them back in and decided I would just draw them. Canada's flag is relatively easy to draw, but I guess I didn't like one of the balls I had here, so I decided to make a new ball. It's really frustrating when, for whatever reason, you just can't get a ball right. This was probably one of the more frustrating moments of the drawing that comic. And this ball itself, I don't like. Just looking at it, it's not very smooth. It's very rough. So here I'm drawing the American flag. There are two countries that I hate drawing more than any other. The United States is one, and the United Kingdom is the other. And because I'm American, I have to draw this flag a lot. Every time I draw it it just shoots my anxiety levels way up. There's a lot of cleanup involved, and getting the angles right, how curved one of these stripes should be, is super annoying. Now, obviously, the U.S. has 50 stars on its flag. You don't have to draw all of them. You will notice that I am making them offset because that's what the flag is like. It's how we've put 50 stars on our flag. Maybe some more soon. Coming to your country. So again, I love drawing the sunglasses. It's probably the only part of drawing the American flag, or rather the U.S. as a character in any comic, that I truly enjoy. I love the sort of nonchalance that the sunglasses denotes to whatever character is wearing them. Obviously, we sort of use the sunglasses in an emotive way like we would eyes. So you can bend them up or down or have them curved upward to make them look happy. It's one of those weird quirks of Polandball comics. So here I'm drawing Canada. Canada is, I guess, technically also a tricolor or a bicolor, but it's 3 bands. I don't know what the actual definition is. So the maple leaf is actually pretty easy to draw, but for whatever reason, I didn't like every version I was doing here. It took me a while to actually get this done. You know, looking back, this version I think is actually okay, but I will go back later and redo it. You're familiar with the pixel art event that Reddit has done a couple of times. There was sort of this meme about how the Canadian community couldn't get the maple leaf right, and I was thinking about this while I was drawing it. Again, I added the sunglasses. So I went back and I redrew the maple leaf because it's a little small here. Now, I mean, it's pretty obvious it's Canada based on the context, and you can tell that there's some sort of red in the middle, but there are other flags that look similar to Canada's. Peru, I think, and I decided to make the maple leaf bigger, more pronounced. So that looks pretty good, but watching this right now, I don't like that I settled with a really rough ball for Canada. I would go back and redo it. The US, I think, is pretty rough too. The EU's isn't the worst, but it's not great. The UK's is probably the best of these 4. So here I'm drawing the UK. As I mentioned, this is my second, well, I don't know if it's second least favorite, but the US and the UK are tied for, I think, the least fun flags to draw. So I start by drawing the cross. I think it's the St. George's Cross. Similarly to drawing balls, getting these lines right can be annoying as well. But you can go back and clean it up. Add in the blue field from the Scottish flag. This part's not too bad. Start to fill it in. So this was one of the quicker UKs I've made. Typically they take a long time. Obviously a tricolor is a lot easier since there's only 3. The UK is typically drawn with a monocle, but for the purpose of this comic, I'm having all 3 of these Anglo countries wear their flags, wear sunglasses. There have been comics in the past where people have essentially made like sunglasses that are gold to sort of look like the monocles. I think I might have done that in a very old comic at one point. But typically for most comics that feature the UK, you have a monocle and then a top hat. Top hats I don't like drawing. They always look like way too big, really wide. There are a number of artists out there that have made really good top hats. I'm not one of them. I typically just draw sort of a half circle around the top of the ball and then sort of a very rough rectangle above it, and then I shade it a little bit. And then I'm, again, using layering here to determine how I want these characters to be positioned, sort of behind the EU. They're more supporting characters. They don't have any lines in this comic. So the last 2 characters I'm going to draw here are France and Germany again. This ball looks pretty good. So that one's going to be France. And this one's going to be Germany. This looks a little rough. You can tell this ball's a little wide. When you're drawing a ball, you can tell really early on whether or not it's going to be a good ball or not. So again, drawing eyes really early on, it gives you a feel for how the comic is actually coming together. Look at how emotive this is, right? Just look at how upset, look at how angry these characters are with such a simple part of the drawing. And then you can go back and you add in the colors to the flag later and shading as well. It's very easy to do that, but they look like characters now. Go in and draw the lines. Move them around, clean them up a little bit. I can fill it in, and I can fill in white for the eyes. It's a very good France. Same thing with Germany. Use the eyedropper tool to take proper colors from the previous panel. Fill it in. rather moving the characters around, filling in Germany's eyes. Drawing the hair bow again on France. I think this is a nice little detail. A little bit of flair to some of these characters. I like positioning the characters in a manner that doesn't sort of leave a lot of unused space in a panel. I would otherwise crop a panel as well. So here we go, I'm adding shading to these characters. It can be a little bit annoying, but again, what I do is just use the pencil tool with black and cover essentially every part of an object or a character that you want to have a shadow. I also tend to use one light source, so the shadows are almost always going to be angled in the same way. It's just easier. So here I'm adding the text, probably the last part of the comic. And a Polandball comic uses Engrish. France and Germany are not English-speaking countries, so we don't use proper English for them. And I'll add a little line at some point here to indicate who the speaker is. Add some more text in the second panel. And again, I'm going to add the line to indicate who is speaking. In this case, it's the EU, who has been influenced so heavily by Anglo-American and I guess Canadian culture to the point that English is sort of the dominant second language in Europe and is one of the 3 official working languages of the European Union. And that's it. I'll leave this comic up for a few more seconds. If you like any of the content on our channel, please let us know in the comment section below, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you.